see what happens when I do this. Am I here? Am I live? Is it happening? Excellent. That was a bit of an adventure for me. Thank you so much, folks, for hanging in there. And welcome to another Wednesday live stream virtual art studio. I'm Mary Kroner here on behalf of the Living Room Community Art Studio. I do the Wednesday afternoon live streams, and every Thursday evening we host another live stream with someone else awesome from the community. Hello, Nicole. It's so great to see you here. Thanks so much to everyone being patient while we got this up and running. I was having some streaming key problems. Yeah, you know how it is. It's one of those things. But I'm so glad to finally be here. Now, I know Nicole is an old hand at these live streams. And hello, Jay. Oh, gosh. It's so good to see you folks here. I know you guys are old hat at this by now, but for those folks who might be tuning in or watching for the very first time, or who maybe aren't familiar with what we do here, well, the Living Room is an art hive. We provide opportunities where people can connect and create with one another for free or very low cost in service of community development and taking care of ourselves, that individual well-being thing that we got going on. And it's a really important part of what all art hives everywhere do. Hello, Wendy. Now, we don't have our studio space anymore because of, this whole pandemic thing. But we are online for now, and we are working hard on getting back out there into the community with our mobile art studio, the bus that is currently sitting in my driveway right now. We're working hard on that, and we'll keep you all up to date. But for folks who are tuning in today wondering, what's this? This is just an hour and a half of time that we get to share with one another online. I will be creating something and chatting with you. You can chat by asking questions or sharing comments in the comment section in Facebook. And when you do that, I get to see you. I know who's enjoying this or participating in this experience right now. However, if you'd prefer to be kind of invisible today and just take time for yourself and listen or watch without being kind of a part of the whole thing, that's okay too. Don't worry about that. You can just do what you need to do, and I'm fine. Oh, and Jay just saying, see, we use this time to say hello as well and connect with folks that we haven't had a chance to connect with in a while. And I'm getting from Jay, we miss you, Liam and Nona and Madeline. Say hello. Oh my goodness. Hello, Liam, Nona, Madeline. It's so great to see you and know that you're out there. I hope you're thinking of making some really interesting art with me today. If not, that's okay too. Right now in Oshawa, where we're located, it's a beautiful sunny day outside. So here's the other thing. If you want to just spend a little bit of time with us in the pop-up art studio and you want to go outside or you have some errands to run or some work to do, that's okay. You can do those things while you listen or watch, or you can take breaks, do what you need to do, and come back and jump in a little later during the stream. I'll be here until 3:30 p.m. today. And of course, this is archived, so even if you miss the whole thing, you can always come back to our Facebook page and watch it later. It won't be live, so I won't be able to say hello or answer your questions in the same way, but it'll be here. That's all I'm trying to say. So lots of ways to access this and watch it, and we even share it on our YouTube channel. Yeah, so a few weeks afterwards, we'll upload all these things to YouTube so you can miss anything that you might miss, you can catch up on. How does that sound? Yeah? I know that's a whole lot of stuff off the beginning, but I'm hoping that everyone out there is doing okay. I'm wondering what folks are creating and making. So if you'd like to share with me, keep me up to date about all the things you're working on, maybe they're works in progress, maybe they're old projects that you're finally coming around to celebrating and honoring. Perhaps you're thinking about trying something new and taking some creative risks. Why not feel free to share it? Right? There might even be folks who are watching or listening who can help you troubleshoot difficult areas or share resources that they have found helpful along the way in their creative journey. And that's another reason why art hives like the Living Room are here, so that we can share all of those wonderful resources and transfer that knowledge from one another, because you don't always learn everything you need to in school. And there aren't always schools out there who can teach what we need to know, if that makes sense. Hello, Joe. It's good to see you here as well. And Joe says, good afternoon, everyone. Oh, interesting. So Wendy is trying felting and buttons. So needle felting buttons. like badges, like pins, brooches. I'm loving that. Or buttons that you use to, to sew on to clothing as an accessory. I'm loving that. If anyone else out there is working on that kind of thing and wants to connect with Wendy about how you do what you do, all the things you've discovered along the way, and of course, Wendy has a wealth of knowledge that Wendy can share with people too. So, I mean, a little bit of a shout out there, but I know you've got skills, Wendy, and there's so much that we can share with one another and teach one another just by being in community with one another. Oh, interesting. So Wendy is taking felting old buttons on felt. I'm really, really liking the sound of that. I have a whole jar of buttons right here. So we have, I think it's fair to say, at the living room here and split between here, my sort of living room studio at home, and the storage space where we have all our materials. I think it's fair to say we have thousands of buttons, right? Thousands of buttons, which we can't wait to share with folks again. But I love the idea of incorporating things like this into other arts projects, creative arts projects. And who knows, maybe, you know what, Wendy, maybe I'll be doing that a bit today as well once I get started with the overall piece I'm working on. Because these make beautiful centerpieces to flowers. And by, talking about flowers, Joe is saying, oh, interesting. Excellent. So Joe's reminding everyone to look at those sunflowers growing around your neighborhoods because Joe donated over 100 plants. Joe, that's wild. 100. I know you were sharing seeds with folks. There you go. Oh, my supply shelf needs a good tidy. So I know Joe was donating seeds and sharing those seeds around the community, and it sounds like those plants, 100 plants, that's amazing. I will. I have a few sunflowers growing here myself. I'm protecting them as much as I can from, don't want to mention it, but folks who've been tuning into the live stream know I have a complicated relationship with squirrels. And I'm trying to protect my sunflowers as much as possible before planting them out. Because, what can you do? If anyone has any tips on how to cope with squirrels eating your sunflowers, let me know. I think now is a good time to share it. And I know there's folks in other communities beyond Durham region that have been planting sunflowers too, even some folks in the UK. So again, if you have ideas about how to take on those squirrels, I don't expect a complete victory, but finding a balance, harmony, balance. Now Nicole says, oh, you're changing one of your doll's hair, so it's curly. So you're curling your doll's hair. That's fantastic. There's so many interesting arts worlds out there and little niches, little places we can go and visit creatively. And doll making, art doll making, and doll repurposing is a whole incredible world that I haven't really had a whole lot of time to dive into and to visit. But maybe I should, Nicole, because I know you've done some extraordinary things over time with dolls and the creation of dolls. And Nicole also says, I got some new headphones in the mail today, so I'm trying them out. How do I sound, Nicole? In fact, I might adjust this. How do I sound, everybody? Let me know if I sound okay and if you can hear me, okay? And Wendy says, oh, well, speaking of sunflowers, Wendy just watered all of her sunflowers this morning. Brilliant. And Joe was suggesting, with the seeking harmony with the squirrels, covering plants with netting, with that kind of mesh. That would work, yeah. And Wendy says, oh, lovely. So we're in the sharing of resources category right now. Wendy says, I have a bunch of brown-eyed Susan plants if anyone would like some. That is extraordinary. I started growing some from my seeds I harvested last year, and they're very tiny seedlings right now. But if you have, oh, that's brilliant. Wendy has plants to share. So if anyone would like those beautiful brown-eyed Susans, click on Wendy's name there in the link and message her, and we'll share some beautiful gardening resources with the community. And brown-eyed Susans are gorgeous because they do come back year after year. They're perennials. And if you're lucky, they self-seed. And then you get those beautiful, bright, sunny faces growing up through the garden. And another great excuse to be out there and spending time outside with your hands in the soil, getting creative. Oh, I sound good, Nicole says. Excellent. And that's even with the new headphones. Thanks for letting me know. And Joe says, I know what works for me to distract the squirrels. Okay. I'm in. You have to stand. I fall for it every time, Joe. Joe says, I have to stand tall and act like a nut. Well, I think I might already be halfway there. I mean, I can stand as tall as I possibly can at my 5'3", 5'4" on a good day. And you know what? In my acting life, early on in my career, I did have a job where I dressed up as a sunflower. Or was it a daffodil? Yeah, I had to hand out leaflets in the Toronto subway dressed up as a daffodil. You know, when I was a student at theater school, that was one of my first jobs, of acting jobs, and I took it very seriously. I embodied that flower, although I can't remember whether it was a sunflower or a daffodil now, so that just goes to show. And yes, Joe says black-eyed Susans are beautiful. So again, click on that link to connect with Wendy, reach out and see how we can share these resources, because the community does have so much. And if you're someone out there who perhaps has other materials that you'd like to share, art materials of all different kinds. So that we include within that gardening supplies, fine art supplies, non-traditional fine art supplies, or upcycling, repurposed materials that other people might be able to use. Just ask, because you never know. There might be someone in the stream who's watching or listening who might connect with you later on that can share those wonderful resources with you. And Joe, oh wow, Joe says, I will have hollyhocks that have reseeded, so I'll have more plants in the fall. Hollyhocks are beautiful, and I've never, you know what, I love them so much, and I've never had good luck growing them here. I think I don't have the right kind of sun exposure for those beautiful plants that grow so tall. Oddly, sunflowers do succeed if the squirrels don't get to them first. But yeah, I love it. And you know, today's theme, this is all really interesting because today's theme, for me anyways, and I know I don't often bring themes to the live streams, but it's been on my mind and something that I've been exploring. The concept of digging in the dirt and pulling the weeds. Now, for folks who chat with me, pulling the weeds, well, hollyhocks, oh, so Joe's saying hollyhocks take up a lot of space. Well, I'll take some off your hands, Joe, if you like. Maybe I'll connect. I don't know if they transplant very well, but I'll give it a go. Let's see, where is this? Let's see what I got here. Yes, the theme of today's art making, and I'm just going to lean out of shot for a little bit. Boop, boop, boop. I'm back. Digging in the dirt, pulling the weeds. It's an interesting one for me. I don't know, what do people think when you hear that phrase, digging up the dirt or digging in the dirt and pulling up the weeds? I invite you to create art on that theme for yourself if you feel so inclined. Letting yourself explore what those phrases mean to you, or perhaps art inspired by gardening, by nature, by the natural world we are so lucky to be supported by, the sacred world that we have that we often take for granted. I know for me, digging in the dirt and pulling the weeds also has a kind of, there's also a metaphor involved in there, which is getting rid of the dark and difficult stuff and getting your hands in the, like, busy, getting your body and your mind involved in making space for new and positive things. So I think it's been a difficult week for so many people. There's been a lot of interesting and heavy news out there that we need to acknowledge, and a lot of hopeful things that will hopefully come because of that. We can't ignore it, right? You can't have a healthy garden without tending to it and without taking care of it. And we all have a responsibility to do that. So part of myself, part of my brain is occupied by that idea. And I want to make space for it to come out through the art today, to let the art hold some of the difficult stuff for myself. And hello, Momo. Momo says, hello, I'm going to dig into my papers and create something. So your paper art stash, or your papers as in academic papers? I know, it can have many meanings. Simple words with many meanings. Let's switch over now so I can get busy creating. Oh, and Joe says, I'll plant them for you. They will work. Okay, Joe. Deal. I'll see what plants I have in my garden that I can share with you too. Okay, so let's see what we have here. And I'm wondering if do things seem a little dark? I don't know, maybe not. Hopefully not. So what am I going to do right now? Okay, with this theme of digging in the dirt and pulling out the weeds. Art paper. Yes, so Momo's digging into art papers today to create something fantastic. Fantastic. I'm going to be using a bunch of things. I wasn't sure what to use, so I pulled out my paints. I have some watercolor crayons and some regular watercolors on hand. I've got my scissors. I've got some contact paper that I want to use because I want to explore masking and what happens when layers are built upon other layers and things are revealed. And Momo says, yes, very difficult stuff this week. And it does seem a bit dark, Momo says. It goes with the theme today. Yeah, I think there's room for everything, and I think there's hope. There's still hope at the bottom of everything, but there's, especially for Indigenous community members, there is renewed grief and trauma, so I want to be mindful of that out there. And as someone, a settler of unearned privilege here, of course it's figuring out, okay, what do I need to listen to? What do I need to tend to within myself to change, to grow, to become a better human, a better ally, to become more mindful of being of service in the ways that will help make positive change. Does that make sense? And I like to think perhaps that other settlers out there are wondering the same thing and thinking, what can we do? And of course, June is Indigenous Peoples Month, and it is also Pride Month. So I feel like those two things can and do connect and intersect in really interesting ways. And again, as a cisgendered person here who moves through the world with a lot of privilege, that's another aspect to consider, right? So a lot of big thoughts in my head. I don't know about you, but if you're exploring and considering some of those same things, feel free to share. If you have things you'd like to offer to share in the conversation, please feel free. But of course, if today you need to do whatever you need to do to tend to yourself, take care of yourself, and maybe it does not touch upon those themes, that's of course all right as well. Do what you need to do, make what you need to make, create space for whatever needs to be voiced in your day today. And let's see. And Joe saying, oh, and back to digging in the dirt. One thing to be aware of when you are digging in a new green space, there are a lot of strange invasive weeds that can and will cause irritation and even more rashes or reactions. Do just be careful. I found a bad one in Curtis. Oh, Joe, I'm sorry to hear it. Sounds like, I know there are some out there. Hogsweed is one of those that you have to be careful, and there's a lesser than hogsweed that looks quite pretty, but when you cut it, the kind of, I don't know what to call it, the plant juice can be quite irritating and toxic to some people. And there's another plant out there that I was just talking about the other day because it's in my garden and I love it so much. But again, some plants, it's not a bad idea if you have a pair of gardening gloves, or any kind of gloves actually, if you're pulling weeds or cutting things and you don't know what they are, never a bad idea to wear some gloves and just protect yourself as much as you can, especially if you just don't know what you're pulling up. And that, I think there's also some metaphor within that as well. And one of my teachers in art therapy school, my teachers and a mentor, a woman, Charlene Friedman, that I admire greatly, that's what she used to call gossiping, pulling out the weeds. I'm pretty sure I heard her refer to that, and that stuck with me. Pulling out the weeds. Because we all do gossip a little bit, don't we? There's some negative stuff, or, that stuff we need to share or vent. Pulling the weeds. Right? Making space for new stuff or positive stuff, the things we do want to have in our lives. Oh, and Joe's saying hello to everyone, Momo, and anyone that Joe can't see their names of. And again, for me over here, I can only see people's names if you participate in the chat. You don't need to, but just in case you're wondering why isn't Mary saying hello to me or acknowledging me, it's probably because I just don't know you're here. But I don't know. I can feel people. I feel ya. And for all those folks who are watching or listening and not chatting, that's totally okay. Do what you need to do. I'm happy that you're here. And let's see, yeah. Nicole's saying, I had some nice news today. One of my favorite shows just announced they got renewed. Excellent. I know you're a super fan of so many wonderful things. If you feel like sharing the show, feel free. And I'm going to create a base of color here, something that makes me feel good. The colors representative of stuff I want in my life. Yeah, I wonder why my camera's dark. So interesting. So interesting. I will figure it out. And Momo's saying, and yes, dark times as well, and we need to dig into it and become better and do better. I agree. I think there's always room to learn, to listen, to learn, to grow. So much of it comes from being still sometimes too. I think there's a lot we can learn from just being in nature and observing nature, observing our gardens or our plants that we have in our life, even spending time with them. That might sound really artsy, but I think there's a certain stillness that for some of us is difficult. For myself, anyways, is difficult. And that stillness and that quiet is essential to have in our life so that we can grow, so that I can listen and learn and move forward and actually absorb information instead of being responsive and reactive and not anticipating where my choices or my behaviors might take me, especially if they are coming from a very difficult and dark place. You know? I'm a very angry person by nature because there's a lot to be angry about. And I need to find really healthy, constructive ways of channeling that rage, which is quite frankly what it is. It's rage. Building a relationship with it, making friends with it so I can learn how to use it. Difficult things to talk about. But I think important things. And I hope that I'm not alone in that, experiencing those things and looking and wondering how to work with those. And Joe, oh, interesting. So this is a great app with weeds in your garden or plants in your garden, because sometimes weeds are just plants in the wrong place. Joe says he downloaded an app called Picture This. It is an app that uses the picture you took from your camera phone, and it tells you the flower or weed species, as well as the concerns, any concerns of allergens or, if they are edible. So all of that wonderful information. So Picture This. Sounds like a really cool app. I'm going to check it out. Anything that can help us identify and make friends with our natural world. That's a good thing in my books. Oh, nice. Momo is saying, hello, Joe. So again, back to Joe. And then calling up, checking in with Nicole to say, what show? Watching Mayor of Easttown right now and loving it. Oh, I haven't watched that show yet. I'm excited about that. It sounds really, really good. Very interesting. And Nicole says, the show Nicole's watching is called Pretty Hard Cases. It's filmed in Toronto and is Canadian, and Nicole loves Canadian content. Nicole, Canadian content loves you. Canadian stories are well worth celebrating. Well worth celebrating. So what is this layer I'm creating here? All right, I'm going to add some more texture into this. Yeah, the Mayor of Easttown is with Kate Winslet, a fantastic actress. Indeed. And it's a lovely thing to see people coming out of this time with a renewed, or at least I hope, a renewed appreciation for culture in all its forms. Things we've missed experiencing, things we've been grateful to experience in our homes, especially when we haven't had a lot of access. And Nicole says, Just about new technology. Nicole's headphones talk when you turn them off, and it's kind of freaky. Yeah, there's some really interesting, the higher tech gets, is that a phrase? I'm not sure. The more fascinating it becomes. It's like, I don't want my technology to be that smart. I don't know if that means that I like dumb technology. There's got to be another way of saying it. All right. Now, spending some time with this, just playing around and throwing color at the page. Again, for folks who know and watch, that's something I love to do. It's one of the reasons why I like doing live streams, because I find that when my brain is kind of distracted by connecting with folks in this way, it allows really interesting things to come out that I wouldn't necessarily let happen. I would self-censor if I was here on my own doing things. And that has everything to do with that inner critic, which we've talked about lots on here. But I've decided to let myself be surprised by what happens. And I think the more I'm allowing and making space for that surprise, that discovery, the more I enjoy the process of creating. And interestingly enough, the more I am enjoying what I'm creating to begin with. And that's a really lovely thing about the Art Hive too. We have knowledge scares. I suppose we do sometimes as well, but skill sharing where it's, specifically this is how you do this thing, create in this way, use this technique for this effect. But there's also just so many opportunities to be inspired by random things and take creative risks that we wouldn't otherwise jump into a lot of the time. Because you have the opportunity, because you're surrounded by the supplies, or you're giving yourself that space, that time to play in ways you don't normally play. So if you are out there and perhaps your inner critic is being really loud, I do invite you to, acknowledge it and then ask it to kind of take a back seat, quiet down. Let yourself just invite it to make space for you to play and create. And Momo says, inspired by random things. I like that. Well, I think it's true, isn't it? And sometimes the random thing, it can be a human, it can be a person, it can be a way they create, or perhaps even something they say in the process of creation. There's been days in the space, which I miss, where someone will break out into song, for example. And just from watching how other people react to that, it sparks something new. It sparks an idea. Or if you're creating alongside someone and there's a conversation happening at the next table, before you know it, you may not even realize it, but you're kind of integrating elements of that into the work you're doing. It's a space for sharing. And I know it's not the same, but I do hope that the virtual art hives allow that as well, that we're still finding ways to be inspired and discover things, to stumble across interesting ways of creating, giving voice to our experiences, processing stuff. And it feels like there's a lot to process. What else? I think let's see if there's anything else I want to add to this. What happens if I bring this into it? Oopsie, hello. Okay, I'll bring you into it. When art supplies throw themselves at me. I have really been enjoying, oh, there we go, one for each hand. With these water-soluble crayons, I've been enjoying working with them on wet paper. It's really interesting to see. I'd work with them on dry and then adding wet, but recently I have really enjoyed exploring what they do. On wet. All right. So I'm going to let this be for now, and I'm going to move on to something that perhaps is a little dull, but I hope you hang in there with me. Let me close this up and move that aside for the time being. I have some of this contact paper that someone donated. And during the AM Art Hive, the Good Morning Art Hive that we do on Tuesday mornings, 9:30 a.m. for all those folks who want to start their day in a creative way. I pulled it out and I started using it as masking. So I'm going to continue that tradition today, that technique, and see what I can do. Oh my goodness, and the offers continue. Joe says, Mary, would you also like a bleeding heart plant? I have an extra one. You know what? I don't have one, Joe. So I'm going to message you and we'll figure that out. If there's someone else out there who needs a bleeding heart plant, more than I do, you know, feel free to reach out to Joe. Connect. Okay. I want to play with the idea of layers in soil, kind of in archaeology as well. And what happens when those layers get disturbed, what happens when we make space for those layers. So I'm going to be masking part of this, and then if there's time, hopefully there will be, painting over everything. So this has been making space for spontaneity, joy, color, vibrancy. But I still haven't let that dark stuff out yet, so bear with me. And again, if this is something that maybe seems too heavy for you today, if the themes we're working with are a little too intense, please take care of yourself. Do what you need to do to have your best day. And this may not be the time to dig into that stuff. I get it. And to folks who are tuning in right now, thank you for joining us. Midway through our live stream, or not midway, but working our way slowly but surely. Processing some stuff that we've experienced this week. Things that we're learning about, things we'd like to do better on. Experiments in masking using contact paper. And Joe says, oh, about that bleeding heart plant. Great, they spread in the fall. We will share with everyone. Okay, I like that idea. Making space and making plants. There's something so very, very beautiful about I know not everyone has a garden, not everyone even has a windowsill they can place plants on. But if you do have a little bit of light, and if you can get your hands on a little bit of soil, little something to plant a seed or two in, there's really nothing like the feeling of growing something and taking care of something as it grows. It can be a life-changing experience. That is true. So what's great about this contact paper is even though my piece here is still kind of damp, it sticks. So maybe I'll cut a whole bunch of these and glue them on. And I suppose as I'm cutting this, how are people doing out there? How is the community doing? Community in Durham region and community from afar. Our friends, our family. The artists we know and love or have come to know over this time and care about, who work and live in other parts of the world. What are things like where you're at? Feel free to share. Lovely. So speaking of not having a lot of space to plant or grow, Joe says I just gave Olivia a sunflower for her balcony. It's almost 1 foot tall now. It could reach 14 feet high by September. That wowzers. I hope it does. That will be a victory. That would be, for me, an example of a victory against the squirrels. Love you, squirrels, but wow, 14 feet. But exactly, you don't need to have a garden to be able to grow something and experience what that's like. A little bit of space, a little bit of sunlight, a sunny windowsill, or perhaps even a balcony or a front step. I know some folks who live in co-ops or buildings that, where they've been able to talk to them about creating a community garden. So kind of an allotment that folks can sign up to and share. And each one has a little section of that garden that they take care of and tend. Or they work together in shifts to grow things and they harvest things together and collectively will have a wonderful event to celebrate everything that they've grown and created at the end of the season. Recognizing that gardening is a creative endeavor is it's an important step, I think, for every artist. And of course, it shouldn't be a surprise that so many of the artists that we love include gardening as one of the things that helps them stay creative, that helps inspire them, that helps take care of themselves and tend to themselves in the difficult process of creating. And there's even plants out there for folks who don't think they have a green thumb at all. So that's a question I can put out to folks. Because I know there are some people who might be listening thinking, well, I can't grow anything. I kill everything I grow. There are plants that you can work with. In fact, the bleeding heart, I don't know the proper name for it. If someone else out there knows it, let me know. But that's an example of a plant that I've, grows well in shady areas and sunny areas. It's pretty hardy. Very difficult to not have success with as a plant. And Nicole says, I just found a reusable notebook I bought a year ago. It's great since you can use it over and over again and not use actual paper. That's fascinating, a reusable notebook. So is it like a dry erase notebook or is it something fancier than that? Because there is a theme again of repurposing, recycling. If we can, when we can, use materials that we can repurpose and use again, what a wonderful thing. right? Rather than using up tree-based supplies. And as we know, I'm sure many of us have heard, there's been a lot of demand. There's a huge demand for, with the shipping and everything that's been happening, paper supplies have been in demand. Things like cardboard and things like that. It's worth noting. It's worth taking care of and making, if you can, smarter choices when you have the opportunities to do so with the materials that you purchase to create. With. And Nicole's saying, shamrocks are great to grow if you have a lot of sun. Really? I've never grown shamrocks before. They sometimes seem to happen accidentally, but I've never... Yeah, I'd like to see a picture of the shamrocks that you grow if you've grown them before. Please share. Share if you like. And of course, speaking of notebooks, thank you for the reminder, Nicole. Tomorrow, Thursday, our writer's workshop is back. Now, folks who participated before, this was the writer's workshop. It was about spoken word, an intro to spoken word. Well, Danielle is back and hosting this workshop for us. And we've kind of opened it up a little bit, so it's not just about... I'm going to trim those down a little bit. Not just about spoken word, but we're opening it up to anyone who wants to explore creative writing, poetry, short form, if you want to exercise your skills and just sort of benefit from being around other creative people who are also interested in creative writing. You don't need to be an expert. You don't need to be published, although I know a lot of folks out there are. But just to share those skills, perhaps share the work you've done. Danielle will be offering writer's prompts to kind of spark new ideas. It's just a really lovely opportunity to set time aside for yourself in the day to dedicate to that kind of creativity. So that's Thursdays. It'll be from 10 a.m. until 11 a.m. If folks need or want other times, we can explore those too. Just keep me posted. And let's say Joe is saying, I'm working on a vertical. Wow. And I'll get back to Nicole explaining how that notebook works in a second. But Joe's saying, I'm working on a vertical standing strawberry growing planter. Fantastic. Using PVC pipe. Interesting. 5-inch PVC pipe. Drilling offset 3-inch holes, then fill it with soil and plant 1 strawberry plant in each hole, which will produce 10 to 15 pounds of strawberries? Moral of the message... You just stabilize the pipe and use about 1 bag of soil and you have your own strawberry patch on your balcony or inside. No garden needed. Joe. Okay, when that is complete, please share pictures. I will share that as a little mini featurette on the Living Room's Facebook page if you like, if you give consent, because that sounds like something a lot of folks might be able to experiment or play with in their own space. I know I have a couple of planters with strawberries that are currently draped with netting. So, well, not the squirrels in this case, the chipmunks, my other foe, won't get at them. But I think there are so many interesting ways to grow things that we don't consider. When I was in Montreal, and Momo, let me know if this is still something that they do, if you've had a chance to visit there. Well, I guess not in the last little while. But Le Milieu is an art hive based in the village there, a little cafe and art hive. It's beautiful. One of my favorite spaces to visit when I'm in Montreal. And they had rain gutters. They were sort of hanging inside their front window in a zigzag sort of effect, planted with all sorts of plants and herbs and things like that. And it's just a lovely little shallow planter that suits certain plants really, really well. But they had it up there year-round inside their window. And I thought, how brilliant is that? Repurposing old rain gutters to create new green spaces inside where you wouldn't necessarily expect them. Brilliant. And, okay, Momo saying, love that the writing group is back. Excellent. I was a bit intimidated by all the talented writers, but I will be there. You know, it's so funny. I think you're not, like a lot of us have that feeling inside of us that we're not good enough to participate or our stuff won't be as good as others. Well, we're going to, first of all, we all have that inner critic inside of us. I do as well. And I can spend years editing and censoring something until it becomes nothing, only because I'm worried about what it might sound like when I finally give voice to it. But I think there's something so beautiful about allowing ourselves to be vulnerable with people that we trust. So I think that will be a large part of this group moving forward, is letting people know that you don't have to have any experience, that you don't have to share your work if you don't want to, that it will be a place for experimenting and making mistakes, as well as celebrating what we achieve and what we enjoy about what we create. So perhaps we'll take the performance out of it and just have it be about honoring where we're at in that creative writing journey, and giving voice to the things we care about, and taking those risks in a really safe space. So I'm talking with Danielle after this live stream, actually. So yeah, 10 to 11 a.m. First group back is tomorrow. I'm excited about being there and just putting my brain to work in that way, because I always want to write and I never give myself the time. So this will help me make time. And oh, it looks like Joe is signing off. Well, Joe, have a beautiful day. And he says, au revoir, au wiedersehen, hasta la vista, and buenas tardes. And right back at you, Joe. And this reminds me, speaking of writing, that I want to get back to what Nicole was saying about her notebook. And Nicole says it works with certain markers. I'm not sure how well it works with dry erase. Now I need to see if they work. Well, be careful. I don't want to... Instructions, safety first. It sounds like a really interesting notebook. And Nicole said, I found notes that are probably 2 years old and they haven't faded at all. So this is exciting technology, exciting notebook technology. I want to learn more. And Momo's saying, yeah, we had a lot of plants at Le Milieu. They haven't been there for over a year. That makes sense. A lot of us haven't been to art hives in over a year. I think the last time I was there was a lot of plants in jars and also in old fish tanks. Brilliant. Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. And Carlos says, hello, Carlos. Based on what I've seen so far, Momo, I believe you're a talented writer too. Thank you, Carlos. Our inner critic can be harsh, and I respect that you may feel that, but I have faith that your creativity will be of heart and brilliant as a result. And that's something too important to remember too. Maybe tomorrow we'll remind folks of that. Let's say, who says your writing has to be good? I think good is a really interesting way to qualify what we create, isn't it? It's so subjective, and what we don't think is good, someone else might love, but it still feels vulnerable to put it out there. I appreciate that. But perhaps tomorrow we'll just focus on just allowing ourselves to be bad. What if we did that? That's sort of revisiting a theme that we played with a few weeks ago in this live stream. What if we allowed our writing and allowed what we created, we gave it permission to be what it needed to be, even if it was bad? Right? You never know. I wonder what would happen in that case. And bad writing, bad art making, as I've said before, it counts. It absolutely counts. And until we allow it to be what it wants to be, warts and all, we never really know, do we? As part of discovering, I wonder if that's part of discovering our voices as artists, making space for that ugliness, that not good enoughness. What if that's the very thing that is the key to your voice, to a voice as an artist? What if that's the thing that makes what you do so brilliant? We can't discover it until we get through that. Trimming away, trimming away. Yeah, so I'm hoping that the writers group will be a place where we can feel safe enough to try things, safe enough to fail if that's what we feel happens. And we can still express ourselves. And at the end of the day, come away with something that we feel really strongly about, even if the strong feelings are based in, oh, I don't know about this. Each one of us has so many stories to tell. And it might not be through writing, but any form of creative expressive modality. We can tell our stories that way, but speaking for myself, I do really feel drawn to exercising that creative writing muscle, and we don't have opportunities to do it enough in Art Hive, at least this Art Hive. So we're going to do it. We're going to make space for it. Oh, Momo's saying, I love these reflections. Momo. Momo, we love you. I think I can say that. I think I can say that with confidence. I'm just really lucky. I count my blessings every day for this creative community. A creative community that has helped keep me sane. Even, well, sane, I mean, that's contextual too. It's helped me through very difficult times. It's helped me feel comforted in the madness that I do feel and I struggle with day to day. The things I cope with. So I'm truly grateful. Truly, truly, truly grateful. And that is a gift of art as well. It allows us to hold and consider these difficult things. The things we don't like about ourselves or the work we create. The things we don't like about the world we're living in that we want to change but aren't sure how to change. Art making teaches me how to listen, how to find stillness. Especially when my brain is so busy, I don't know. I don't know what to do or how to move out of that noise. There's a great gift in spending time creating. And I think an even better gift in creating with one another. Even if it's virtual. And Nicole, oh, interesting. Nicole says, my notebook erases with heat. So you just use a hairdryer on it. That is awesome. I think I need to explore this. I did splurge and purchase some erasable highlighters for myself. If anyone has had a chance to work with those, let me know what you think. I have loads of fun working with them. Loads of fun. Takes away the jeopardy of highlighting something that you may not want to have permanently highlight, but also it's just fun to play with those colors and overlapping them. Oh, it's lovely. Good. There's nothing like a really like satisfying piece of stationery materials, stationery equipment. What would you call a highlighter? What genre of fine arts materials do highlighters fall under? Yeah, I'm not sure. If you know, if you are out there and you have the answers, please feel free to share. Inquiring minds want to know. And Nicole's saying, I just unraveled something. I'm assuming something with yarn. And it now looks like I have a bunch of ramen on your desk. Oh, that makes me hungry. Nicole, that makes me hungry. Ramen. Nom, 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 nom. Oh, it's been a while since I've had a good bowl of vegan ramen. Oh, delish. Got to do something about that. Got to find a good recipe. Oh, wait. There's no contact paper on that. Ah, there we go. So it is 2:58. And I really do want to get to the next stage of this piece and see how it works. And I see in the comments there, Nicole, you were saying Frickson markers would be the best to use. You know what? Those are the ones I have. Definitely a splurge, a bit of a splurge, but really worth it. They come in so many colors, and there's so many, there's so many colors of those Frickson highlighters and markers. Definitely, if you feel like treating yourself, Can totally recommend that brand. Okay. I think I want to cover this up. So let's see, I'm going to cut a big hunk of this. Let's give a little close-up just to see what's happening here and what it looks like. I kind of actually like the contact paper effect, that wood grain effect that's there. But you know what? I'm going to push myself. I'm going to explore what happens if I take it one step further. Because it's art. And in art, I can explore and I can experiment and I can make mistakes. And that can be a really beautiful place to be. Oh yeah, Nicole, if you'd like to share the link to the notebook in the show and tell, please do. So after every live stream, I'm not sure if folks know, and if you're new to the live stream today, welcome. Thanks for being here. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Thanks for chatting if you feel like it, but if you don't, that's entirely okay as well. We generally have, after every live stream, we post a little, what we call like a show and tell kind of post, which is where we, can post pictures or links to what we've been working on, kind of spread the word about the creative things we've been doing, but also resources that folks might want to take advantage of. Yeah, there's like so many things that we've had the privilege of sharing before. So kind of anything goes post. Links, videos, movies, websites that inspire us, Tumblrs, where we keep our writing. There's lots of different things we can share with one another. So please feel free, if there's something that you're excited about, that's a great place to throw it. If you've heard about something in the chat or you've mentioned something in the chat that you'd like to, share with other folks, it's also a great place to put it. And that's an easy resource for people to grab things at a glance and take with them. Because I know sometimes the conversations in the live stream, the posts can kind of go on, right? We're really lucky about that. And it's hard to find things after the fact. So the show and tell post afterwards is just a great way of cutting through that. Hello, paint. How are you doing, paint? Oh my goodness. Oh, that paint. I think that paint is done. Goodbye, paint. Thank you for being in my life. Let's try this one. And on the fly, just creating this palette for myself. Oopsie. Oh no, the lid. Can I reach it? Where did it go? Oh, I'll pick it up after. Stay there, don't dry out. That's an order, paint. For folks who don't know, I can, that makes it seem like I can control paint. Like I have some sort of otherworldly mastery over it, and no, I don't. But hopefully it won't dry out in the last half hour we have together here. All right, so what do I want to do? I want to find a brush that feels like a good fit. I had one before, and where did I put it? Huh. I think this brush can work. Yeah. I can get a little messy with this. It'll hold up to acrylics nicely. So this is the darkness. This is the stuff I've kind of been holding on to all week. And I'm just going to mix a bunch of these colors together. Let them fall onto this canvas. And often, of course, when we mix colors together, we get this kind of murky, mucky brown color, which is or can be the color of soil. something beautiful that gives life. And I know there's a number of times at the studio where people have been exploring or working with paint for the first time and mixing colors together. And they learn this on their own. And they're not always happy about it. Suddenly those colors that turn into a kind of mush, a dark, murky mush. And this week, for better or for worse, and I'm not saying this because I need to feel better or need anyone else to make me feel better or help me feel better. I just want to acknowledge, and I think it's important that we make time for ourselves to acknowledge what we're feeling, because if we don't acknowledge that, we'll never be in a place where we can begin to acknowledge and really receive and process what other people might be asking us to on their behalf, right? Appreciating our own experiences and lived experience and felt experience allows us to become better attuned to what other people in the world are feeling, what other people in our communities are feeling. It's one of the first steps, as far as I'm concerned. It's how we begin to recognize things, right? And even in this painting, I don't know if it'll work. With masking this out in this way, I honestly don't know. Don't know. But I'm going to give it a try because it feels good to just let this out in this way. And I'm trying not to think about it too much. I'm trying not to impose too much of what my inner critic wants on it. My inner critic that sometimes, every once in a while, has some constructive feedback for me. I want to just let it out and it to be okay to let it out. And that's the great thing about art. It can hold all that stuff for us. You may be working on something at home in the same vein and you don't have to show it to anybody. You can create something that never goes farther than your own art journal. That is part of the gift of this. It's a private space where you can let things out. Now what else do I want to do? I don't know. Oh, there's some paint water into my tea. Oh, what you gonna do, folks? What you gonna do? Just drink the tea, I suppose. All right. This is me trying to dry the paint a little faster. Although sometimes with masking, you want to be careful. There's a fine line between it drying so much where when you begin to lift off the masking tapes or it begins to lift off the other paint and the surface of the paper underneath. So perhaps it's a good thing that I don't let it dry too much. But while I'm here, I'm also going to explore this. What happens if I remove some of that paint and play with those textures? Again, this might be something that leads to other things. I love playing with you folks here during the live streams because I begin to learn. Isn't it funny how, I don't know if anyone else has experienced this, just how rarely we give ourselves time to experiment and play in the work we do. I guess we're so used to producing or feeling the need to produce, right? Okay, so let's start at the bottom and begin removing some of this stuff. And I'm going to use the X-Acto knife to help lift it up a little bit. Come, come. Now, in a perfect world, there we go. The masking will not have stuck. There we are. And we'll have the opportunity to see what's underneath. And this is where having a little waste paper basket nearby can be super helpful, so you're not dropping pieces of paint covered tape on the floor. Interesting. Aha. I felt called to do this kind of process with this. Again, because of that idea of layers and soil and digging in the soil, and it feels like a kind of spiritual creative archaeology when I do this. Like I'm connecting with something a little bit deeper, allowing for something a little bit deeper. And as I'm looking at this even, I think I'm really liking the way it looks, but there's not enough layers. I've let too much air in to the soil, and it doesn't feel as honest as I want it to. But once this dries, I might go in with other masking, like I might use some more of that contact paper to mask out again, and then add another layer of paint. And for those who are curious, Nicole has come through with what calendar day it is today. Happy National Rocky Road Day. I'm wondering if that's Rocky Road ice cream. But I'm also thinking it's appropriate. Rocky, like a rocky road, a rocky path. Those of us who walk that path and do our best to walk it with grace and compassion and curiosity, I think it holds for both. I think it holds for both. I think for quite a few of us, we can relate to walking rocky roads. To taking the path that is a bit uneven. Some of us, we didn't have the choice. The path we were on had those obstacles built in. And if we're lucky, we learn how to negotiate those things and reach out for the supports that will help us navigate those paths. All right. And Nicole says, yes, I think it's the ice cream, but either definition works. Indeed. All right, and the final masking coming up. And I'm going to save this masking. I'm going to put it aside over here. And I'll probably promptly forget about it and get paint all over myself and regret it. But you know, that's the life of an artist. Oh, hello, Barb. Barb says, joining in late. Love your art today, Mary. Good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon to everyone. Yes. Yes. Hoping wherever you are having or feeling like you can reach towards that good afternoon. Let's see. Am I forgetting any masking there? No. Let's have another close look at it and see. So I'm loving the masking. I am seeing some areas that I'd like to adjust and play with. And maybe I'll do so now. Let me just close that up and put that aside. So I'm feeling like there are some areas, and I could just, you know what, I might just touch up a few things. Continue telling this story while I have the time, while I'm with you, because we do have some time. It's 3:15. We usually wrap up here around 3:30. For folks, again, you don't have to spend that whole hour and a half with us. And if you need to go early, if perhaps you're just joining now, that's okay. Welcome to the live stream. We've been talking a lot about gardening today, a lot about, well, resource sharing and skill sharing and the creative places that we tend to that aren't always full of light and joy and the dark places in our life, digging in the dirt, pulling the weeds, making space for new things, new experiences. I'm wondering what happens. I love those sharp lines, but oops, I forgot that you weren't taped down. I'm going to add in some more transparent paint here. So I'm feeling the need to address the things within myself that are compacted themselves. The soil that needs to be aerated. All the gardening metaphors, you know. And while I'm doing this, I am also thinking again about how lucky and grateful I am to have this creative community. I'm thinking, considering of all the folks going through difficult things, processing heavy stuff. I'm also thinking about the lovely, wonderful stuff, the hopeful stuff we have going on in our communities and our lives right now, and how it's okay to feel okay, just as it is to not feel okay. Adding in some transparencies here, there, everywhere. I think one of the things I love about masking and using it as a creative tool is playing with color. Like Nicole says, loving how colorful it is. Yeah, I love playing with color. You know that about me, folks. But I love playing with darkness as well, and finding ways to acknowledge the darkness and the contrasts between the two, and how one can enable the other or benefit the other. Making space for the ugly, for the imperfect, learning from those things within our lives. There we are. It's beginning to feel a little more honest now. I can't explain that. Do you know what I mean, folks? Feeling a little more honest. It's not exactly feeling good, but it's feeling honest. It's feeling right in a way that's difficult to explain sometimes. Let's see. One of those you kind of know it. You know when it's right. You know when you have it. Do I have a detail brush? That's a question. This is a lovely thing. Barb saying that a quote that Barb would like to share. Barb likes this one, and so do I. To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow. And I think all the work that we go through, digging in the dirt, turning over the soil, discovering what's there. I'm talking about gardening, and I'm talking about life as well. It all helps. It all benefits. We learn, we grow, we move forward, we discover. It's not easy work. I don't know if anyone out there has been weeding their gardens lately. Definitely not necessarily easy work, but easier if we also stay on top of it. That's something too. I think a lesson in self-care that nature teaches us. Self-care, but also growing and evolving as human creatures, these complicated, complex, flawed creatures that we are. It's not just a once and it's done kind of thing. We have to keep doing it and tending to ourselves, even though sometimes we really don't want to and we wish it was easier. And sometimes it's beautiful and joyous and fun to do that work. But I think there's so much we can learn from that process. So much. And it does. It brings tomorrow. Nicole's saying, I think you were talking about ugly art a few weeks ago, and I messed up a project a day later. I remembered when you said, so now I just have some ugly art instead. Yeah, why not? I mean, ugly art is also beautiful, is it not? I think it's meaningful, and I think it goes back to what Carlos was saying. It's like of heart. If it comes from a place of heart and that intention, that positive creative force that we all have within us, the ugly is meaningful, the ugly is purposeful, the ugly is interesting, right? Yeah. Oh, and Carlos saying this piece is looking beautiful. Oh, Carlos, I appreciate that. Thank you. All the layers, all the many, many layers. And in between the layers, there's brightness. In between the layers, there is growth. And each layer builds towards something. And perhaps each layer within this piece even is a layer I need to understand about myself. That's getting heavy. That's getting artsy-fartsy. But hey, I think it's the truth, right? It's good work. Like gardening, it's good work. Still work, but good work. Whenever we work on ourselves. Let's see what happens. Oh. And hold on to those pieces, just on that note of ugly art. And again, questioning what is ugly and is meaningful. Is creating something meaningful much more satisfying than creating something that is beautiful? I don't know. I think that's a question each one of us has to answer, depending on what we're working on. But I'd love to hear stories if people have been creating or working on things that haven't worked out, those pieces where you thought, oh, that's not what I wanted it to be. Hold on to it. I invite you to hold on to those pieces, put them away, and come back to them with new eyes a little ways down the road. And if you have done that recently, and you feel brave enough to share those pieces, if you want to share those works with us, either pictures or links or what have you, please feel free. I can feel very vulnerable to share those works. But I know for a fact that all of us can relate. And it wouldn't surprise me if we all find exceptional beauty in those pieces. So yes, I think this piece might be coming to a close, or a still point. A still point, as Charlene would say. One of my teachers or mentors that I appreciate so very much. I'm liking that. I think I'm really digging that, if I don't say so myself. Let's have another close-up to see where it's at. The layers of life, the layers of myself, digging in the dirt, digging down to get to the truth. Of course, there's a Peter Gabriel song all about that, isn't there? Digging in the dirt. It's literally called Digging in the Dirt. I'll post that, perhaps, in the show and tell as well. And if you have other songs or things that you like that remind you of this journey, please feel free to share them as well. It's an important journey. It's one that really, really matters. Look at this lovely mess I've created. I'll have to remember to clean it up before I step in it or put my hands in it. But for now, I think, folks, I'm going to begin wrapping up and saying bye to everyone. It's 3:25. As always, I enjoy spending time with you. And Momo, just on that note of sharing pieces that haven't worked out, Momo says, yeah, I have a lot of those pieces. How many can I share? As many as you like, please. Because, again, I think, how do we know, right? If you're like me and someone who has a lot of like critical voices within themselves and over time has experienced difficult things, that have helped build who we are, have become a part of our story. But again, it's hard to have perspective on what we create and just how extraordinary it is. And it's difficult to accept that feedback when we receive it. I can relate to that. I get that. I have to practice saying thank you whenever one of those moments occurs. But if you do feel brave enough, please feel free to share those pieces and allow yourself to be open to what folks say in response, because I guarantee you, there is beauty within the works you create that perhaps where you're at in that moment of time, we just don't have the ability to access for whatever reason, right? We're so close to it, we can't see it. So yeah, if you want to share some, Momo, please feel free. And you know what? I think I share them every week when I'm here, if I'm honest, because it's always difficult to create and have that honest process with people, right? And Barb says, I find that clay never quite works out the way I expect. It's a medium I would like to learn more about. Interesting. And Barb also says, Momo, I'm with you. So we're not alone, folks. All of us who have struggled with this, who have things that we hide away or don't feel quite comfortable sharing with people. I wonder just how beautiful those pieces are. I wonder. And oh, hello, M. M says, thank you for today. You are all such lovely company. M, thank you for being here, and thank you for sharing that. And on that note, I think, thank you to everyone who has joined us today. And Barb says, thank you all and have a safe and happy week. This is the part of our live stream where we begin saying goodbye and wishing one another well until we can connect again, which won't be that long if you have time tomorrow morning, Thursday mornings at 10 to 11 a.m. The writers group is back. We might do it every other week. We can chat about that tomorrow with Danielle. But keep an eye out. Tomorrow's the first day back with the writers group. And then this Thursday evening at 7 p.m., we have another Facebook live stream this week with Bridget B. Noonan, who will, of course, be doing their fantastic hand lettering, embroidering, cross-stitch, but also perhaps celebrating pride and honoring the special relationships we have in our life with what B creates. So if you like live streams and hanging out and appreciating all the creative vibes, make sure to make some time Thursday night to join 7 to 8 p.m. right here on the Living Room's Facebook. But in the meantime, I want to say one more time just how much I appreciate our creative community here in Durham region and abroad. You've made a very difficult process much easier for me to bear, and I hope what we do here helps lighten the load for folks out there, helps inspire people, helps remind people that their voice matters and what they have to say, whether it is in writing or visual art or dance or gardening or cooking, whatever expressive modality you choose, your voice matters, and the stories you have to tell, the lived experiences you want and need to share, they matter. And when you give voice to that, it does change the world. It truly, truly does. So don't ever doubt that. Or if you are in a moment of doubting, because it's okay to doubt things, just hopefully reach back in your mind and remember that there are people out there who can see the truth and understand the value of it. Okay? Love you so much. Take care. And until we can connect and create with one another again in person, I look forward to connecting and creating with you all right here online sometime soon. And yes, happy Pride to everyone. And we honor Indigenous awareness, Indigenous Peoples Month again. What a month loaded with so much to learn and grow from, honor and celebrate and acknowledge. Wow. Happy June, everyone. Let's make good use of this month. All right. Mwah. That's all for today. Take care and see you soon, folks. Bye.